Hello, BookTube. I haven't been making many tag videos lately, but I'm hoping to get back in the swing of things with the Filmastic February Tag. This tag was created by Duncan of Back Away from the Donkey. I originally saw it on Pat's channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I saw it yesterday on Randy Ray's channel, The Literate Texan. I'd originally planned on doing this tag several times in the past few weeks, but it hasn't worked out. And last week, I was having fun doing a version of it, and then I blanked on the final prompt. So hopefully this time things will work out. Prompt number 1. Your first memory of seeing a film at the Pictures Cinema. Batman Returns. I'm fairly confident that Batman Returns was the first movie I ever physically went to see in a theater. Batman Returns is the second of 4 Batman films that were released over the course of the late 1980s and much of the 1990s. The first 2 starred Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne Batman. The third film starred Val Kilmer, and the fourth, George Clooney. So Batman Returns is set during the Christmas season and sees Batman battling the Penguin, who is leading a criminal terrorist gang called the Red Triangle Circus. Involved in the mix is Selina Kyle, who in this film is a secretary who discovers that her employer, who's involved with the Penguin, has been up to some criminal activities, and she is killed to silence her. However, she comes back from the dead and becomes Catwoman to gain her revenge. It has been a very long time since I last watched Batman Returns, or any of those Batman films. Anyway, on to the second prompt. A book about film. It can be behind the scenes, an autobiography, a work of fiction that includes film as a main subject. So this prompt has given me quite a bit of trouble. I initially wanted to give a nonfiction answer, but while there was a work on, gay men in cinema, like films featuring gay men or that could be interpreted as being gay men, a biography of Joan Crawford, and a biography of Montgomery Clift. For the life of me, I cannot remember the title or author of the first book, or the titles and authors of the Joan Crawford and Montgomery Clift biographies. So I can't use them as answers because I don't remember what the titles or authors are. Now, for the first one, I have a different book by that. I had a book by that author, but I've long since gotten rid of it, and this is like 20 years ago, so I don't remember. I might have it written down somewhere, but I don't know where that list would be, so I'm going to have to keep looking for something for this prompt. So then I moved on to, recently I did haul 2 novels that feature acting or in a director, so but I haven't read them yet, and that would be Me and Mr. Wilder by Jonathan Coe, and The Actress by Enright. Also, The Lesser Bohemians by Eimear McBride deals with training to be an actor or an actress. And also, as I was looking to my bookshelves, I'm seeing over here a poetry collection. Stars in My Eyes by Edward Field. The poems in this collection deal with movie themes and subjects, so that also would work. So we'll also go with that. And the poetry of David Trinidad also heavily deals with film. Moving on to prompt number 3. A novelization or tie-in book. So this is going to be the first prompt of 2 that I talk about the James Bond film series. And for this prompt, I'm going to go with Goldeneye, the only novelization of a Bond movie that I have ever read. It was written by John Gardner, who wrote the 1980s and early 1990s Bond pastiche novels. So to give you a quick rundown, so James Bond as a literary character was created in the 1950s by Ian Fleming. And Fleming wrote 11 or 12 novels and 2 collections of short stories from the 50s through to the early 60s before his death. And then a few years later, Kingsley Amis wrote a Bond pastiche novel, Colonel's Son, I believe it was. And then in the 70s or early 80s, John Gardner was hired to write a fairly long series of Bond pastiche novels that came out once every year or every other year. I read some of the later ones of that when I was a teenager. And then after Gardner retired from the role or the authorship, Raymond Benson took over. And he did the novelization for Tomorrow Never Dies. Because I think that was the transition point. And then Benson wrote some pastiches from the mid-90s through to the early 2000s. And then from there, I don't give a shit about the Bond pastiche novels. Because I wasn't reading them, and I'm not going to be reading them. Okay. Prompt number 4. A film about writers or writing. For this, I'm going to go with Stand By Me. It is an adaptation of a Stephen King novella called The Body, in which a group of young boys, young men, travel outside of their town to go view a dead body of a classmate or somebody similar age to them. And the narrator of the novella, in the movie he's named Gordy, does become a writer. Prompt number 5. A film that brings back fond memories. For this, I'm going to go with The Phantom Tollbooth. When I was younger in elementary school, we would periodically, during the lead up to the holidays, we would get to watch movies instead of doing classwork. And we would sometimes get to watch The Phantom Tollbooth. The problem is that we never actually finished The Phantom Tollbooth. We would start it and get to a certain point, and then the school day would be over. And it wasn't until about 10 or so years ago that I finally actually watched the whole movie. And as I did, it kind of brought back memories of my childhood. So we'll go with that. Excuse me. Prompt number 6. A film that made you want to read the book. Raise the Red Lantern. It is a Chinese movie starring Gong Li as a young woman who marries a wealthy Chinese businessman, or, well, he would be a businessman, or he might be even a warlord, but I think he's just a businessman who has 3 other wives, so she's the 4th wife. And the film is dedicated to the jockeying for position that the 4 women go through until things go to hell in a handbasket, and the main character has a mental breakdown. Raise the Red Lantern is an adaptation of a novella by Tong, which I read sometime after I watched the movie when I discovered that it was based on a novella. So I had that novella, and I just recently reacquired it and would like to go back and reread it. I would also like to watch the movie again if I could find it on streaming, which has been not successful. Prompt number 7. A book that made you want to watch the film. I don't know if there's anything that's worked that way. A book that's made me want to watch the film. Nothing exactly has jumped to mind with this. Prompt number 8. Films based on a book story that bear no resemblance to the source. For this, I'm going to be returning to James Bond. So, some of the Bond movies are based on the original Ian Fleming books, novels, and stories. Some of them are more closely adapted. The first few in particular, like Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then Casino Royale. They're all fairly close to the source material. I'm not entirely sure. I would say probably, so the rest of them, Live and Let Die, well, You Only Live Twice, Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, probably The Man with the Golden Gun. I've never read it, so I don't know. But I don't think it is that close at all. The Spy Who Loved Me, absolutely not. Moonraker. Octopussy, View to a Kill, The Living Daylights, and then I think, those are nothing in common with the novels, except for maybe some character names. License to Kill, Goldeneye, Tomorrow Never Dies, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, Die Another Day are all original stories. Quantum of Solace is based on a short story and has nothing in common with the short story. And then Skyfall, Spectre, and Die Another Day are all original stories. And I'm not entirely sure about... And I would say no to You Only Live For Your Eyes Only, because while it is a mashup of two short stories, and there are fairly close bits from both, overall, not much in common. So a lot of the Bond movies have no resemblance to the source material. And finally, prompt number 9. Recommend 5 films. So I'm going to recommend to you The Women. It's a film from the 1930s about a socialite who discovers that her husband is having an affair. And her initial thought is to break up with him, to divorce him. And over time, she comes to regret that decision. And her friends that kind of change over the course of the movie influence her decision one way and another. It is really fun. And I'm going to be reading the play version, the original, sometime this month, hopefully. Next would be The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. It's a French musical starring Catherine Deneuve as a young woman who has a relationship with a young man who goes off to fight in Algeria. And then when he returns, their relationship isn't the same and they go their separate ways. Third, I would recommend Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. It's directed by Ang Lee, and it is set in 1990s Taiwan about a chef whose getting on in years, who's facing both a midlife crisis as well as the various crises of his daughters. Number 4, I would recommend Fargo, which stars Frances McDormand and is about a small city chief of police or sheriff who has to investigate a disappearance and a series of murders that she's not exactly equipped to handle, but she successfully solves the mysteries with very little help outside. And number 5, I would recommend Juliet of the Spirits. It stars Giulietta Messina as a middle-aged woman whose husband is having an affair, and over the course of the novel, Juliet begins to have a few mental breakdowns. And it is a really fun movie. All 5 of them are really fun, so I would recommend all of them if you can find them. Some of them are easier to find than others, namely Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. I have not been able to find that film on streaming anywhere, and it kind of ticks me off. So anyway, if you would still like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged. Anyway, BookTube, that's it. So thank you and have a great day.